For you to make a great thing, there's storytelling, but there's also budget and technology. And I think on the technology side, there's still a limitation, but more so the capital side is almost non-existent. So where stories travel, it's Hollywood has budget. They're doing movies for $200 million. Nigerians are doing it for 200 million naira. And it's not the same thing, guys.
Correct.
200 million. It's not the same thing. It looks like a number of zeros. So I'm just also curious as to your fund. Tell us about that. What you're setting up and how. I know that a lot of creatives are going to be listening to this because and quite a number of people that I follow are within the ecosystem as well.
Yeah.
But how is the fund active now? How do they assess it? And what are the industries you're particularly taking off with?
So good. So I decided to start up something called the PACED Fund, PACED Fund, which basically is an acronym for a Pan-African Creative Economy Development Fund. And the focus of the fund is to focus on investing in one, infrastructure, two, go into the financial and legal engineering of converting intellectual property as an asset class, and three, able to galvanize funding support to develop human capacity within the creative segment. And the 6 verticals that we want to focus on in terms of subsectors are 1, entertainment, which is an accumulation of music and movies. 2 is arts and culture, a lot of your visual artists, sculptures, all of that. 3 is fashion. Fashion I'm quite passionate about because from my time in government, we looked at doing industrial parks that will support the development of the textile and garment space. And I had the opportunity of going to China to get more learning, perspective, and exposure. And it then dawned on me that actually it will be an ideal, and hopefully this is the direction we'll all end up at, where a lot of our standard everyday African or cultural attires can be standardized from a production standpoint. So whether it's your Euro and Boba or your kaftan or whatever it is, you can standardize it from a production standpoint, whether it's leveraging on technology, but of course, appreciating the IP from the fashion designer, but standardize it and be able to produce at scale so that we can start to export it to international markets. There's a big diaspora consumer base for our local fabrics and fashion styles. I also think that a lot of our entertainment ambassadors should also now be intentional about adopting a lot of our local fashion brands. I see a lot of these big entertainers from the Nigerian side promoting whether it's Gucci, Boss, and all these brands.
So proud of leading Nigerian brands.
So we want them to promote made in Nigerian brands. But anyways, to my verticals, there's fashion, then there's sports, then there's culinary arts, which is your food, and the final is tourism, which we think has a huge potential for growth. And obviously, I commend what's going on the federal government side. I can see what they're doing very actively, and we want to be a supporting catalyst for that. So the structure has been set up. We are at the very early stage of fundraise, but more importantly, we're taking positions on some pilot projects, which in due course will be announced shortly. One is around the music side, hopefully create some synergies and partnerships around music and entertainment.
Okay.
2 is do some little pilot projects around the sporting side. Make some little investments to support some interesting sports clusters. 3 is promote some initiatives around tourism. At least these will be some of the initial pilot projects that will be announced pretty soon. And yes, close out on the first layer of our seed funding and commitments. We're having some interesting conversations, and then hopefully, scale that up to more institutional investors and investments. Hopefully, once they start to see the performance of some of the pilot initiatives that are working, that are already in the pipeline.
All right, so I think we're all very excited about the potential of the creative economy. I love the verticals you're focusing on: entertainment, looking at art and sculpturing, look at fashion, looking at sports. We haven't scratched the surface of any of these, but I think that a generation of young people took Afrobeat, African music, and today that music is literally everywhere in the world.
Those guys are rock stars.
They're rock stars. And I would say that when I was growing up, the music that defined my teens were Tupac, Biggie, maybe if you throw in Maze was around at the time.
Yeah.
It was a lot of rap music, and
You avoided mentioning Puff Daddy.
I was not going there, and R. Kelly, but those two, nobody mentions. And no cancel for that. But yeah, Puff was quite strong back in the day, right? And no, but then a lot of talented young people were very American in their approach to music. Fast forward to now, we're seeing a change. Then you had to westernize to become global.
Correct.
Now you have to Africanize to become global. We're seeing that even people like Selena Gomez, well, they won't do stuff. Chris Brown and Wizkid, I'm sure they're coming out with something new. Like everyone is trying to jump or work with an African artist. That has changed, but a group of people defined it. Then when we look at fintech, so let's talk about fintech. I think in the last 10 years, we've seen 4 companies emerge as unicorns. I mean,
Right.
Interswitch, Flutterwave, Paystack, and MoneyPoint. Right? And all of these are successes of the last 10 years because a group of people decided we want to solve the payment issues in Africa. And they decided to solve through payment, remittance, all of those other aspects. I see a possibility where we harness that Nigerian spirit and channel it. What we discover there is always tremendous. And I'm really, really seeing that creative space will happen, and it will happen, and it's happening. In animation and gaming, it will happen. In film, it will happen. Once capital collide with innovation, revolution is the outcome, right? And I think people like you are rare because I don't always find men with the money that like to talk creative. So when you meet people who want to invest, they just look at you guys, oh, artists, oh, let me finish with them. And like, that they're struggling because,
Yes.
yeah. And then sometimes creatives don't know how to talk numbers. So I often say, for us to change that creative journey,
Correct. Yes.
we would need to have a situation where you would find people who can speak the language of money, speak the language of art, and speak the business of art.
Correct.
But let's talk about Made in Aba. Chinese, a couple of years back, came up with a policy of creative imitation or reverse engineering. And what they did at the time was they would send people to the US to go and learn. They will buy the US technology, they'll sit with it, unpack the technology, study it, reverse it, duplicate, clone, learn. And over time, they started by creating similar technology, creating capacity. At first, they were inferior. 20 years ago, it wasn't a thing of pride to buy made in China, because buying made in China was almost buying poor, buying cheap.
Yes.
Now that is changing. Today, Chinese literally have almost 3.3 trillion worth of IPs that they've built on the back of a lot of innovation. And we've seen even in AI now, DeepSeek is popping up and helping us discover that for a fraction of what the American companies will spend building, they're doing that. I really think that there is something about the energy of ABBA in your state, the beauty of that entrepreneurial energy, raw and real.
Correct.
Guys are churning themselves out. There is really, really nothing harnessing that yet. But what can ABBA be for Africa? can it really become that production hub for the continent that can actually allow for us to start taking pride in wearing Nigeria, dressing Nigeria, from textile to different aspects of production that we need, that how Aba can be central to catalyzing the production in Africa. And also, you have an economic and finance background, so understanding that if our imports is always higher than our exports, we're still at a variable point, right? And to diversify the economy, we must come to production. So give us a picture of what Aba really can do for us, the Made in Aba, and how that can feed into our Made in Nigeria, proudly Nigerian narrative.
So thank you. I mean, Aba is an interesting case study. I mean, I look back when I was working in Abuja. I have an uncle very close to me. He too was a public servant in Abuja. And pretty much every other month, he would call me and say, "Hey, K-boy, look at this suit I just got. I got a couple of pairs of suits. Look at this shoe. Look at this trouser. Look at this attire." I was like, yeah, uncle, I love it. Makes sense. Looks good. Nice cut. Feels good on you. And he would say, it's Uche from Aba that did this or did that. And honestly, I could see over time the consistency and uplift in the performance and the quality of what my uncle would showcase as a Made in Aba product. Of course, maybe not quite comparable to your Taviro per se, but you could already see the emergence of something that has a strong potential. Aba truly is what I'll call a center of resilience and innovation. I mean, at least the last I left of it, and I'm talking, let me go back to my government days, 2017, 18, thereabouts. Dilapidated infrastructure, zero infrastructure, in fact. Whether it's the access road points to access to power or the critical backbone infrastructure that can make Aba truly industrialized, zero existence. But yet, the output that comes out of it, based on pure sheer resilience,